You are now locked into the Red and Blue Rivalry podcast, the podcast where we are talking all things San Francisco 49ers and Dallas Cowboys.
My name is Eric Hernandez, and I'm calling all the faithful.
And I am Philip Enriquez, repping for America's team. And on this one, man, only one of our teams is in the divisional round, in the playoffs. That's your Niners, man. They got the first game on a Saturday, the early game. I know you're pumped, man. I'm just going to leave you to it, man.
Yeah, I am. It felt weird. I'm glad they had the bye, but you know this. Like, when you have the bye, you kind of miss them for that week. Like,
yeah.
Everything's all this stuff. You're like, oh, my God. So they're playing the 1:30 game. They're welcoming Minnesota, who for the last week I've been kind of thinking about, having to face Seattle again or dealing with Philadelphia coming into town. But you have that upset in New Orleans from Minnesota, and it just changes everything.
Changed everything in the NFC because you were probably focusing on Seattle.
Yes.
Yeah, and then here you go. They just, they just like I said, turn it upside down, and now both 6 seeds won in the AFC and the NFC.
Yeah.
So the Vikings, man, let me tell you something. Talent for talent, from the top to the bottom of the roster, they're as talented as anybody in the NFC.
Yeah. See, what happened was before that game started, maybe a couple of days before, I was like, you know what? Jesus, do I really want to having to deal with Russell Wilson and Jadeveon Clowney again? It's a short week. There are rivals. You know this. You don't really want to have to play your division rival a third time in the playoffs. Or we're going to deal with the Eagles, who are going to have, both their tight ends, their running game. So I was like, oh, what if Minnesota wins? I can deal with that. And then Minnesota won, and it kind of dawned on me as I was celebrating New Orleans' loss. Man, Minnesota's really freaking talented. They are one of the most talented. You look at their team on paper, and I put any of the other top, like if I put Patrick Mahomes or Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees on that Minnesota team,
you're worried.
They're a 15-1 team. They're
right,
because you look at Dalvin Cook and Diggs and Thielen and Kyle Rudolph and Trey Smith, and you're like, wow, it is going to be really hard to stop them on offense. You look at their defense with Emerson Griffin, Danielle Hunter. You look at the linebackers with Barr and Kendricks. I mean, there is talent all over this team, and ironic that Jimmy Garoppolo, in order to get his first playoff win, he has to beat the team that handed him his first loss ever. When the Niners went in last year into Minnesota, and, that game was just so different as far as the talent on the Niners. Minnesota looks similar. I mean, Minnesota had those teams.
Yeah.
The Niners they're night and day different from that team. When you look at the fact that it was like Alfred Morris and Pierre Garçon leading the team.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Big difference.
So, as I get ready for that one, I do believe in just our defense. And I think getting Tart back, Jaquiski Tart. I felt like we were going to get D Ford back, but to get Quan Alexander, the middle linebacker, or the weak side linebacker, back, I mean, he suffered a torn pec in week 8 on Halloween. He went out, and when you hear that, you think season over.
Done for the season.
Season over. And for him to be able to come back, he's cleared for the medical tent, so he's gonna play. How much he plays, I don't know, but to get him and D Ford and Tart back, I mean, that's like adding 3 high-level starters to a defense that was pretty good to begin with, and the goal is to get to and break Kirk Cousins. And
what's the key with that? I mean, what's the key for the defense? Obviously, getting pressure on Cousins first, but
they're the only team that runs the ball more than the Niners is Minnesota.
Minnesota runs the ball religiously.
They are close. We are basically. I mean, you look at it, it's Gary Kubiak influenced outside zone play action. It's literally the Shanahan offense. You look at their defense as far as the playmakers, and I think what you have to do is you have to make sure you force them in 3rd and long. You cannot let Dalvin Cook get flowing, and at that point, you just have to make sure.
So the key is stopping Dalvin Cook on those early downs, not getting them into 3rd and short where they have an open playbook.
Yeah, exactly. You want to make sure that you keep Dalvin Cook in check, because I feel like the more you're able to do that, the more you're able to just, especially with D4, just come off the edge. I mean, the one weakness of the Minnesota Vikings is probably their offensive line. It's not world beaters.
Right.
Their tackles are very beatable.
Yeah.
And I think you have a guy like D Ford who's healthy, D Ford is only going to play, I guarantee you, passing downs, 3rd and long, and it's simple. Just get off the edge, fire off the edge, because if he can fire off the edge and force that line to shift and allow Nick Bosa to kind of be able to work one-on-one and create, opportunities to rush. That's going to be key. When they get the ball on offense, what they want to be able to do is use play action and take advantage of the hurt corners. I mean, you have Xavier Rhodes, who's not been that great this year.
No, he's a big time down year for him.
Mackenzie Alexander, who we were reading about, is having surgery on his meniscus and is going to be out for this game. So the holes are going to be there, for them. But it's about making sure that you can get up, be able to move the ball, touchdowns. What killed the Saints in their game against Minnesota is that they just could not start fast enough. They started slow. Everything was kind of like big plays for New Orleans came with Taysom Hill.
Yeah, and trick plays.
Yeah,
there's trick plays.
Whereas when the Niners have the ball, we have to make sure you're getting touchdowns. I mean, if you can get up 17-7, it's going to go a long way in kind of just like killing the momentum. I think what the Niners want to be able to do is if you can sack Cousins, Minnesota's riding this giant wave of momentum, unlike anything they've seen. They fully believe. They went into New Orleans and beat the Saints. What you want to do is make them feel like that's a fluke. And the way you do that
you can't let them believe.
Yeah.
Not early in the game.
No.
You can't let them believe that they can hang. You need to show them that you're the 1 seed and they're the 6 seed.
Exactly.
And there's a reason for that. And I find it funny because Troy Aikman was talking about this on a podcast that I was listening to. And Troy Aikman said that the one thing about San Francisco is, of course, you want to be the 1 seed. Of course, you want to be at home. Of course, you want to be riding the momentum that they have going off of the regular season. But the fact is, as a young team, they still have to prove that they can win a playoff game. And the Minnesota Vikings, for what you will, not getting that rest, not having the record, not having the home field advantage, they have won that playoff game. So in some small, I guess in a different way of thinking, at least the pressure's off of them. And that could be dangerous for the 49ers.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. They went into New Orleans and they beat New Orleans in a playoff game. That's a lot for Kirk Cousins. He's set. He's like, okay, I've accomplished something. One of the stigmas on him is gone.
Yeah, I can't win the big game.
Yeah. So when I look at that, that's a big thing. But what I believe in is that there is some experience. Now, you have actual game playing experience in guys like, Joe Staley, and then you have
your veterans. Yeah.
Sherman. And then you have a guy who didn't play but has seen a lot of his stuff in New England with Jimmy Garoppolo and be able to see, like, oh, God, this is how Brady prepares. He got to see how the best prepare for those games.
Yeah.
He was there. So, yeah, I think he'll come out a little slow, but I think that does help. And plus, at the end of the day, I just think they're clones of each other. I just think they are a more talented team. They're just a little bit better in most situations. I think they're a little bit better at quarterback. I think they're a little bit better across the board at pass catchers. I think they're a little bit better at defensive line. I think they're a little bit better in the secondary.
You think they're better across the board in pass catchers?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I would probably disagree with you on that.
I don't know.
Because with a healthy Thielen,
yes,
Diggs.
I just think that George Kittle, and then you look at what Deebo Samuel's done and his ability just completely, the way Shanahan uses him.
I think that's the key. I look, I'm not going to take it away from Shanahan this year. I see the way he calls plays. I think he protects his offense really well because he can see who's hot. He knows who has the hot hand. He knows where to go in his play calling.
In a vacuum, it's not singular. It's not like if I had T.O., okay, and I was his coach. I don't know how to coach T.O. Like, you can't just take things in by a player. When you look at everything in totality, you have Kyle Shanahan calling up the plays for them. Being able to scheme them open. I think that when I look at that, their ability to beat one-on-one coverage. You saw the difference that Emmanuel Sanders made for this team when he was there. He's older, but if he was young, I mean, I could see him looking as good as Thielen or Diggs.
Yeah.
He's older. But you look at what Deebo Samuel's done, and then just the gap. I mean, all you have to do, if I just have to do one thing is, I will simply show you.
Is Dante Hall saying the defense is better than the 49ers?
You know what? Can't always be right. Can't always be right.
All right, just
making sure. Can't always be right. But, he's
outlandish.
He's outlandish.
Just say it.
He's outlandish.
He's crazy.
But
It's not far. I get it. It's not a mismatch by any stretch of the imagination.
I just think that when you look at what they can do, and especially Kittle, what do you think of the Saints thing? That's an image that will always be in my head of that 4th and 2 where he's literally dragging people by his face mask down the field. And when I look at everything, man, I just look at they're just a little bit better in enough positions at play caller, at coach. I just think they're better across the board. It will be interesting to see the chess match between Shanahan and, it's kind of weird because you have these coaches like Shanahan versus Zimmer. I'm sure Zimmer's going to have something ready for Jimmy and for Shanahan. And then you look at the young coaches. Like these are potential, coaches, future head coaches in Stefanski, the offensive coordinator for Minnesota, and Robert Saleh, the defensive coordinator for the Niners, and how they're going to match up and where they're going to have their wins and losses. It's a great matchup. I think the Niners win by 10 because I think at the end of the day, they'll go up by a field goal at the end. They'll be up by a touchdown. They'll kick a field goal. And I just think Kirk Cousins will this is when it kind of happens for Kurt. I don't think he gets through Bosa and Buckner and Ford, Armstead, and the rest of the defense.
Yeah, I think that D Ford's going to be a huge, huge lift for the 49ers defensive line. I think with him screaming off the edge on passing downs, it's going to be a difficult front four to block for the Minnesota Vikings and their offensive line. With all that being said, I do think that the Minnesota Vikings have caught a little bit of lightning in a bottle. I mean, you beat New Orleans in New Orleans. That's the ultimate confidence booster. So you can go anywhere. If you can win in New Orleans, you can win in Santa Clara.
Yeah,
that's the way they're looking at it. They got momentum going into the playoffs. However, at the end of the day, I think San Francisco, to me, I don't see them being as inconsistent as the Saints were last week for 4 quarters. No. I don't see them playing that bad. Even if they're kind of slow, coming off the bye, you're working in guys that are coming off an injury. I think by the time it hits the 4th quarter, the cream's going to rise to the top. I think the San Francisco 49ers are going to win this game. I picked them to win this game, but I think it'll be a little bit closer than you're calling it. I see the San Francisco 49ers winning this game by, say, like 3 or 4 points within a touchdown. But I can't take it away from the 49ers. I think that they have the advantage on defense. I think they have the advantage in coaching. I don't know about pass catchers, but outside of pass catchers and running back, I think they have the advantage everywhere else.
Yeah, I'm just excited. I've missed them for a week. I will be ready for this game, pumped up, ready to go Saturday morning, and hope next time I talk to you about this, I'll keep the same happiness that I did after week 17.